Clint walked the old woman outside the store, the bags in one hand, the other gently resting on her shoulder. She kept looking up at him, confused, unsure why a man like him, a legend, would step in for someone like her. "Why did you help me?" she finally asked, her voice soft, almost broken. Clint didn't answer right away. He glanced at the busy street, the cars, the noise, then looked back at her and said, "Because years ago, someone didn't help my mother when they should have. I promised myself I'd never let that happen again." She blinked back tears. "Your mother must have been proud of you." Clint looked away for a second, the weight of old memories tightening in his jaw. "She was. I hope she still is." They stopped beside a bench. Clint set the bags down and reached into his coat pocket, pulling out a small wrapped box. "This isn't from the store. It's from me. Something personal. Please take it." She hesitated, but his eyes told her it wasn't something to argue with. She opened it slowly. Inside was a gold brooch shaped like a sunflower, old, elegant, clearly treasured. "It belonged to my mother," Clint said, "but I think she'd want someone kind to have it now." Her hands trembled as she held it. "I don't deserve this." Clint leaned closer, his voice firm, gentle. "You deserve better than what the world gave you today." Suddenly, a voice called out from across the street. A young man with a camera had seen the whole thing. "Sir, Mr. Eastwood, can I ask, why her?" Clint turned to face him. "Because kindness isn't about who deserves it. It's about who needs it." The young man lowered his camera, speechless. Clint turned back to the woman. "Now come on, let's go grab a cup of coffee. I know a place where they treat people like humans, not wallets." They walked together down the street, an icon and a forgotten soul, reminding the world that no one is invisible when someone finally decides to see them. They reached a small cafe tucked between towering buildings, the kind of place where time slowed down and the aroma of fresh coffee wrapped around you like a warm hug. As they entered, the bell above the door jingled softly. A young waitress looked up and froze for a second when she saw Clint, then smiled nervously. "Good evening, sir. Table for two?" Clint nodded but pointed toward a cozy corner near the window. "That one. Feels like home." The old woman looked around the cafe, clearly overwhelmed. "This is beautiful," she whispered. Clint smiled gently. Beautiful places shouldn't be limited to beautiful people. They belong to those with beautiful hearts. They sat down, and the waitress returned with menus, though Clint didn't touch his. Instead, he watched the woman as she admired the lights, the people, the warmth. For a moment, she didn't look old or tired. She looked like a child rediscovering joy. After placing their order, Clint leaned in. "Tell me your story. I'm listening." She took a deep breath. "I used to be a teacher for 40 years, raised two boys alone after my husband died, taught hundreds of kids to read, write, and dream. But now, my pension barely covers rent, and my sons, well, they got busy." Her voice cracked on that last part. Clint nodded slowly. "You taught the world how to stand. But when you stumbled, no one offered a hand." She looked at him, surprised. "How did you know?" Clint's eyes softened. "Because the world's full of forgotten heroes. I've met many, too many." The coffee arrived and they drank in silence for a while, each sip warming more than just their hands. Clint suddenly pulled out his phone and sent a message. A few minutes later, the cafe door opened, and two kids from earlier in the luxury store walked in, guilt written all over their faces. The woman looked confused. Clint stood up. "I asked them to come. They owe you something." One of the kids stepped forward. "Ma'am, we're sorry. We judge you by what you wore, not who you are. We had no idea. Please forgive us." The other added, "And we've started a donation drive in the store for retired teachers in your name." The woman couldn't speak. Her eyes filled with tears. Clint put a hand on her shoulder. Sometimes a small act of kindness changes not just a person, but everyone watching. She looked around the cafe. Strangers were now clapping softly. As the clapping faded and the warmth in the cafe wrapped tighter around them, the elderly woman sat in quiet disbelief. She held the brooch in her hand like it was the only treasure she'd ever owned. Clint leaned back, arms crossed, watching her with the kind of look only a man who's seen too much gives, a mix of pride and sadness. You know, he said, most people live their whole lives unnoticed. But today you reminded them what strength looks like. The woman smiled for the first time in what felt like years. Not a polite smile, a real one. I didn't expect any of this. Not from you, not from them. I just wanted a small bottle of perfume to remind me of my youth. Clint raised an eyebrow. Well, I think you got something better. You reminded them of humanity. Suddenly, the door of the cafe opened again. A young woman in a sleek suit walked in, carrying a tablet. She went straight to their table. Mr. Eastwood, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we just received word. Your post about this woman is going viral. It's everywhere. The woman looked shocked. Post? What post? Clint shrugged. I took a picture outside the store, wrote a few words, didn't expect it to spread. The assistant turned the tablet to show her. There it was, a photo of her walking out of the luxury store with Clint beside her, bags in hand, chin lifted. The caption read, "She walked in alone, judged. She walked out as a reminder that dignity doesn't wear labels." The woman covered her mouth. I don't know what to say. Clint stood up, handed her the brooch box again. You don't have to say anything. You've already said enough just by being you. The assistant added, there are people asking if they can meet you. Donate in your name. One man even offered to pay for your rent for the next 5 years. She gasped. That's too much. It's not, Clint interrupted. It's not even close to what you deserve. Just then, a little girl from another table walked over and handed the woman a drawing. You look like my grandma. She's in heaven, but I think you're an angel too. The woman's hands shook as she accepted the paper. Clint placed a hand on her back. See? Told you. Today wasn't about buying perfume. It was about reminding people of what matters. Outside the cafe, the cold air had settled again, but the woman didn't feel it anymore. Clint walked beside her slowly, carrying none of her bags this time, because now she walked lighter, straighter, as if the weight of years had quietly slipped off her shoulders. Across the street, reporters had started to gather. The viral post had drawn attention from everywhere. Lights flashed, microphones were extended, but Clint held up his hand, signaling silence. She's not here for your stories. She is the story. You want to honor her? Listen, don't just ask questions. One brave reporter stepped forward and asked, Ma'am, what do you want the world to remember about today? She paused, looked at Clint, then back at the crowd. That sometimes it only takes one person to look at you like you matter, and everything changes. I was invisible this morning. Tonight, I feel seen. The crowd was quiet, respectful. Some even had tears in their eyes. Clint gestured toward a car waiting nearby. Let's get you home. But before that, we've got one more stop. They got in, and the car drove through the quiet streets, past glowing buildings and blinking lights until it stopped at a large old building with a freshly painted sign, Hope House, for the Forgotten. She read it aloud, confused. What's this? Clint opened the door for her. It's your new project and your new purpose. Inside, the lights were warm and the space buzzed with quiet activity. Dozens of elderly people sat in armchairs, some knitting, some reading, some just quietly watching the world go by. A young staff member walked up. We've been preparing this for months, Mr. Eastwood's idea, but we didn't have someone to lead it, someone who truly understands what it means to be left behind. Until now, the woman's hands flew to her mouth. You want me to lead this place? Clint smiled. Not just lead, inspire, teach, heal. You've spent your life building people. This is just a bigger classroom. She turned slowly, taking it all in. Her face lit up in a way Clint hadn't seen all day. I can't believe this, Clint gently replied. Believe it. The world forgot you, but now you'll make sure it never forgets anyone else. The next morning, sunlight poured through the tall windows of Hope House. It didn't feel like a shelter. It felt like a second chance. The woman stood at the front of a small common room, reading a book aloud to a circle of elderly men and women. Her voice was calm, strong, filled with meaning. They weren't just hearing her. They were feeling her. Some smiled. Some nodded. Some closed their eyes, letting her words fill a space that had been empty for far too long. Clint watched from the doorway, arms folded, a rare softness in his expression. One of the staff whispered beside him, "She's changed the place already. It feels different, warmer, like there's hope again." Clint gave a slow nod. That's what happens when people are finally given a purpose instead of just, "She would be proud of you." Clint shook his head. "She'd be proud of you." Just then, the doors of Hope House opened again. A group of children entered, wide-eyed and giggling. "They're from the local school," a staff member explained. "They want to interview the residents for their project on life stories." The woman's eyes lit up. "I used to do this in my classroom." "And now you'll do it here," Clint said, watching her walk toward the children. She bent down, greeting each one with a warmth that could melt stone. The kids instantly connected with her, not because she was famous or rich, but because she saw them, just like Clint had seen her. As she laughed and talked with them, Clint turned and walked out into the daylight. No cameras, no applause, just quiet steps down the street. But behind him, he left something louder than fame. He left a legacy, and now that's the final piece. Later that week, Hope House was buzzing like never before. A news crew had been invited, not for drama, not for scandal, but to share something real. The woman stood at the center of it all, no longer a forgotten figure in the corner of a luxury store, but now a symbol of revival. She gave a short speech, not rehearsed, not polished, just true. People think aging means fading, but here we're proving every day that it means growing. Some of us just needed someone to water the roots again. Her words hit home. The footage of that moment went viral within hours. But it wasn't her fame that mattered. It was the movement she started. Donations poured in, not just from celebrities, but from students, single parents, veterans, even strangers from across the world. People who had once felt invisible found a voice in her story. Clint watched the rise from the shadows, never stepping forward to take credit. That wasn't his way. He made things happen, then let others shine. He showed up when no one else would. That's what made him more than a legend. He was real. One afternoon, as the woman walked through the garden behind Hope House, she noticed a bench with her name carved on a brass plate. She sat down slowly, letting the sun fall across her face. A soft voice came from beside her. It was one of the boys who had mocked her that first day at the store. "Miss?" he asked quietly. "Can I visit sometimes? Just to talk?" She looked at him, not with anger, not even with pity, just a gentle smile. "Of course. That's what hope is for." He sat beside her, awkward at first, but slowly easing into her rhythm. They talked about dreams, books, regrets, and things most kids never think to ask. She didn't lecture him. She just listened. That moment, like so many now, wouldn't make headlines, but it would change a life. Clint passed by the gate, unnoticed by most. He glanced in, smiled to himself, and kept walking. Another soul lifted, another fire relit. No need to say anything, no need to stay. The story would carry on without him, because now it belonged to everyone. A month later, the woman sat at her desk in the office Clint had insisted she take, though she still insisted it was too fancy for her. Papers were spread out, letters from strangers all over the world. Some were short. "You gave me courage. My grandma cried watching your story." Others were pages long, filled with grief, hope, and thanks. One letter stood out. It was from a young woman in France who wrote, "I was going to end everything. Then I saw your story. You reminded me that people see value in what the world calls old. Thank you for saving my life." Tears welled in the woman's eyes, but she didn't wipe them away. They were part of this chapter now. Every tear told her she mattered again. She walked out into the main room, where a birthday party was underway for one of the residents. Balloons, cake, and laughter filled the air. She joined them, clapping and singing, the life of the room. Not because she was trying to be, but because people now looked for her when they smiled. That evening, after everyone had gone to sleep, she stood by the window, watching the stars. The door creaked open, and Clint stepped in, carrying 2 mugs of hot tea. "Heard you had a long day." She took the mug, grateful. "Every day feels full now. I haven't felt this alive in decades." Clint raised his mug slightly. to second chances. They sat in silence for a while, letting the quiet settle. Finally, the woman turned to him. Why me, Clint? You could have done this with anyone. He sipped his tea, then looked at her with that same steady gaze. Because the world forgot you. And I promised myself, if I ever found someone like my old teacher again, someone with a fire still burning beneath all the dust life throws on us, I'd never let the world make that mistake twice. She blinked back tears. You kept your promise. He nodded. And now it's your turn. Keep making them remember, one soul at a time. And with that, he stood up, placed his empty mug on the table, and walked out once more into the night. Quiet, steady, like he always did. But this time, she didn't feel like the story was ending. She knew it was only just beginning. Weeks passed, and Hope House became something much more than anyone imagined. Schools started visiting regularly, young people volunteering after classes, learning not just from textbooks, but from stories, from wisdom, from pain and healing. The woman who once sat quietly at the edge of a luxury store, invisible to the world, now stood proudly on stage during a citywide event honoring community heroes. As the crowd applauded her name, she scanned the audience. But Clint wasn't there. Later that night, as she walked back into Hope House, she found a small note waiting at her desk. It read, "You don't need me to stand behind you anymore. You're leading now, and you're not alone." She folded the note gently, placed it inside the cover of her favorite book, and smiled. Outside, lights flickered softly across the sign. Hope House for the Forgotten. Only now, no one inside was forgotten. They were family. They were loved. They were home. If this story made you feel something, tell us where you're watching from. And if you want more true, powerful stories like this one, subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon so you never miss the next one.